Welcome to Jets Talk. My name is Ryan. I'll be your pilot. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. If you've been here before, welcome back. I love having you here. Boys and girls, we have finally, well, not finally, we get another retirement from Tom Brady, the GOAT. He is going to be moving on with his life. So before we jump into that, I want to play the clip that he put out about his retirement, and then we'll talk about it on the other end and discuss the impact that this has on the New York Jets quarterback situation and the quarterback market in general.
Good morning, guys. I'll get to the point right away. I'm retiring for good. I know the process was a pretty big deal last time, so when I woke up this morning, I figured I'd just press record and let you guys know first. So I won't be long-winded. Like, you only get one super emotional retirement essay, and I used mine up last year. So really thank you guys so much, to every single one of you, for supporting me, my family, my friends, my teammates, my competitors. I could go on forever. There's too many. Thank you guys for allowing me to live my absolute dream. I wouldn't change a thing. Love you all.
So that was Tom Brady's retirement post that he had on Instagram or Twitter. That to me felt like it was official. That was the I'm done moment for Tom Brady. He said, "Oh, you only get one emotional essay." I used that up last year. Obviously, every guy that retires has this big post to say thank you, thank you, thank you. You're not going to do that twice. So I do like that he kind of did this. I'm a little irked that it happened like right before the Super Bowl, because now everything's going to be revolving around the greatness that was Tom Brady, as opposed to talking about like the Super Bowl so much. But I guess we were talking about Aaron Rodgers a whole crazy ton, so maybe this doesn't really change the talking points. But either way, Tom Brady in 2021 had 5,300 yards, 43 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. He decided to come back out of retirement this year. The low-hanging fruit is going to say he risked his marriage, wound up having he lost his marriage, had a mediocre year, which I will remind you is still damn near 4,700 yards. Only had 25 touchdowns and 9 interceptions, so a very, very low mark for Brady as far as career averages go. 25 touchdowns was his lowest since 2013, and his lowest in a year, you'd have to go back to 2006 and 2003 to get like 23 and 24 touchdowns. So really not a great closing performance. Got a one-round bounce out of the playoffs. But by and large, Tom Brady, incredible career. Glad he's done. But the game is going to be weaker because of it, because we don't have that massive think about it. There's people in this league right now who were born after Tom Brady got into the league. They've never known an NFL without Tom Brady. I mean, heck, I'm 33 years old. The majority of my life, Tom Brady has been in this league. It's just brutal. It's like, it's nice to finally have him out and done. So, how does this impact the quarterback market, and what does it mean moving forward? Because I had released a video, it might have been even 2 days ago, when we were talking about how Brock Purdy and a torn UCL might mean Brady going to the San Francisco 49ers. Well, that just eliminates Brady entirely. So it's not even, could he go to the 49ers? Could he go to the Raiders? Could he go, any other number of teams? Well, he's not going anywhere. He's retiring. I don't think he's going to come back out of retirement, kind of what like Favre did, flip-flopping back and forth. I don't see that being the case. For me, I'm concerned because I think this means my worst case scenario, not even my worst case, but my what I thought was my worst case scenario for quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be kind of a lock for the New York Jets. Now, I think Jimmy Garoppolo puts himself squarely in the conversation for the Vegas Raiders head quarterback position, and then Aaron Rodgers is also in contention for that Raiders quarterback position as well. Now, this has me concerned, because if we really think Rodgers is getting traded, which I think we all probably feel that way, the Raiders are going to be our biggest competition, and if you're the Raiders, going from Tom Brady to Jimmy Garoppolo is entirely different than planning to have gone with Jimmy Garoppolo and missing out. I think the loss of Tom Brady makes the Raiders more likely to go after Aaron Rodgers, and I would say more likely to go after Jimmy Garoppolo in the event they don't get Aaron Rodgers. So we're competing for the same quarterbacks. We're always competing for the same quarterbacks, with the exception of maybe Brady. But this makes it a lot more difficult, and it may even increase the cost for an Aaron Rodgers trade. So it's like Tom Brady, even on the way out, has to kick the Jet fans in the nuts and just pay a little bit more for their franchise quarterback that they're going to have for 2 years in Aaron Rodgers. That's what it felt like to me. I don't know. You guys can let me know your thoughts. I see Citybert in here. Citybert says, Favre has the record for unretires with 2. Is Brady gonna let that stand? Kidding, of course. But if he is back, I don't think anyone will be surprised. That's really funny. I didn't even consider that joke. Favre retires twice, comes back out of retirement. Brady's got to break the record. He's got to own them all. Who knows? Maybe he comes out of retirement just to do that. That's pretty funny, though. Who knows? Jennifer Slattery says, Jimmy G to the Raiders. Yep, that's what I think, too. Yeah, I mean, going back to the offensive coordinator that you had when you first entered the league, a guy that did not want to get rid of you. They wanted to move on from Tom Brady and keep Jimmy G in New England. I could see him wanting to go back to that coach. I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, heck, the 49ers and Robert Saleh, they're part of the regime that was trying to get rid of Jimmy G for the last 2 years. Kind of. Not entirely part of, because they were in New York when they drafted Trey Lance, but you get what I'm trying to say. Basically, Apple doesn't fall too far, is what I'm trying to say here. Sneakers to Boots says, good morning, Ryan. Ding dong, the witch is dead again. I woke up and I'm like, oh, okay, time to start my day. And I get a little Twitter notification. I'm like, all right, here we go again. We're doing the retirement thing. Hopefully he stays that way now. Nicholas Cook says, Rodgers better not take forever with his decision. Oh, man. Wouldn't it be kind of nice if Rodgers came out and said, oh, I'm going to not retire and I'm going to continue playing like later on today, so it completely squashes like the Tom Brady retirement. Like the whole media circus kind of blew its load last year on the Brady retirement. They ran all their, the memories of Tom Brady and all these different things. Let's bring on all the guests to talk about Tom Brady's career. Like if Aaron Rodgers were to do that right now, it just kind of like squashes it. But I think we'll hear about Aaron Rodgers right around when Derek Carr is going to wind up being released, which is going to be 3 days after the Super Bowl. So by February 15th, I think we'll have an answer on Rodgers. I just hope we pull the trigger quicker than that. Sergeant CVO says they can't afford escrow on Rodgers, talking about the Raiders and Aaron Rodgers. I've heard that to possibly be true. I know Vegas isn't like the wealthiest of owners, or the oh God, what the hell is their owner's name? I can't think of it off the top of my head. But I know they are cash strapped. So you'd have to put money into escrow for guaranteed money, and Aaron Rodgers has a lot of it. So that is going to cause a problem with some teams. I don't know their full value, and I don't know how far out you have to go. Because like if you're guaranteed 110 over the next 2 years, can you just put 110 million into escrow, and can they like not worry about the rest of it because it's all dead cap? I don't know. Not entirely sure. Mayberry says, as Jets, thank you, Tom Brady, for everything on and off the field. Yeah, I'm just glad you retired. The Rush 420 says, Raiders can't afford Rodgers. It all depends on that escrow number, right? Like if they have to put it all into escrow, then I think maybe not. If they don't, he's still a huge, massive NFL franchise. You got to think they'd have enough money to have that kind of, or I feel like they could leverage some kind of money. I'm sure these wealthy owners know people that could be like, oh, you could just borrow me $100 million, friend. I think they can. A first, without a doubt, is now in play for Rodgers. Yes, completely agree. I think number 13 is squarely in the conversation because it puts our back even more against the wall. Jets going to get either Derek Carr or Aaron Rodgers. We have to hope that's going to be the case. Those are really the only two I want. I don't particularly want to, I didn't particularly want to go after Jimmy G, but I thought he was probably the second most likely option. But now I think he's the most likely option to end up in Vegas, which means it's Aaron Rodgers. And then if the Jets were like not really considering Carr, which my fear was, then you got a big world of hurt, because what happens if Rodgers retires or doesn't get traded or goes somewhere else? What do you do? What is the next move? Because Carr could go to the NFC South. If the Raiders just if someone says, hey, we'll give you a conditional 7th for Derek Carr, and Derek Carr says, well, I would have gone to Carolina anyway, whatever, fine, cool. Get me out of, the Raiders, I'll go to Carolina. I don't know what you do. This move does have me a little panicked because of the Raiders. The Raiders just scare me, and the whole lack of quarterbacks on the market, I don't want to miss out. That's my whole thing. Lee says, I want the Jets-Packers game this past season. Aaron saw the potential of the team first. Oh, sorry. Lee said, I went to the Jets-Packers game this past season. Aaron saw the potential of the Jets team firsthand. I think he's coming our way. I do too. I think it just kind of makes sense from the Packers perspective, trading him to the opposite conference. I think the Jets have so much pressure on them with our regime that we're going to pay more than anyone else would be willing to pay for Rodgers, giving it being a 1 or 2 year rental. I think the relationship between LaFleur and Saleh makes things make a lot of sense. I think the Packers want to try and see what they have in Jordan Love, and I do think the Jets want to let Zach Wilson sit and learn, and Zach Wilson's family probably feels like it might not be a bad idea to have 2 years behind Aaron Rodgers, because if you consider the roster flip over being on average in the NFL 30% each year, you're talking the majority of this roster is going to be far, far newer the next time Zach may take a snap under center for us. So I think hopefully Aaron Rodgers saw everything he liked during that game and was like, oh, I guess maybe I'll head that way. But I think it makes sense. This is one of those rare trades that everyone involved, it just makes a ton of sense for. Not to mention the NFL is going to love this, because Jets are going to wind up getting Hard Knocks, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be in the media spotlight even more than he already is. He's going to love it. Jennifer says, heck, the Raiders nearly beat the Niners with Stidham, and Jimmy knows the system even better. Yeah, I think it's as close to a lock as possible that Jimmy G is going to Vegas. David D says Rodgers is taking his talents to one Jets drive. Dude, we need to manifest this. Just keep saying it until it actually happens. It'll be there. It'll happen. Frank Pagan says, how does this affect quarterback thirsty teams? Too many teams need a quarterback now. That's always the case, right? We never have enough quarterbacks to fill the demand. And the NFL is trying to do as much as they can to make the quarterback position easier, both by rule changes, by the way they officiate, and then also the style of offense that has kind of come into the league. Younger quarterbacks that may need more time to develop their passing skills are allowed to use their athletic gifts earlier in their career, like Josh Allen, like Jalen Hurts, where they kind of, maybe were a little rougher in the passing game, but after a few years in the NFL, working under pro coaches, then they start refining their skills, and now you see that massive leap in production from a Josh Allen, from a Jalen Hurts. So yeah, there's not a lot of quarterbacks to go around, and the Jets find themselves in a market where, you're going after the biggest fish possible, and you're going to pay the highest premium. So we'll see. Jennifer says, a lot of them didn't have the pieces for Brady to be successful anyway, so no change for the neediest, but the Niners need to bring in some kind of vet. Yeah, I think the Niners losing out on Brady here is kind of maybe the biggest thing, because I think the 49ers, more so than any other team, could have allowed Lance and could have allowed Purdy to sit a year, and then you go into the 5th year option with Lance, with Purdy. You kind of have that quarterback competition where your number 3 overall pick has to beat out Mr. Irrelevant from what would be 2 drafts from then at that point. And it's a relatively interesting quarterback conversation at that point. Brady to the Raiders was the other one. I think Brady to the Raiders is more of my concern, because they're more in play for Jimmy G and Rodgers than I think San Francisco would have been. Citybird drops in, says, what your Vegas over-under line for wins if we get Aaron? Let's see. If the Jets get Aaron Rodgers, I think the Jets are winning 12 games. I think Vegas may have it at 11.5. in which case I don't think I'm going to touch the line. I do think we could win over that. I think it's entirely possible the Jets win 12 or 13 games with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, but I don't feel as confident going, with that over as much as I did with the over at 5.5. But again, we have a bunch of weeks and months left in the offseason, so maybe I feel entirely different with Rodgers and whatever offseason moves we make, and maybe some moves that other teams make, that maybe I increase that number. But I would say 11.5 is probably going to be the line from Vegas to get people betting on things. Let's see. Sneakers to Boots says, I really hope when Brady goes to Fox next year, he gets booed out of the booth. Oh, man. Wouldn't it be like... I want to know what, I don't wish bad on people so much, but, it does bring me a little bit of joy when something maybe not majorly impactful, but something negative, happens to someone that you don't particularly like. I don't like Tom Brady. If he burns his tongue on coffee every day for the rest of his life, I'm going to find a little bit of enjoyment out of that. And that may make me a bad person, but so be it. It is what it is. I don't care. Could you imagine Fox paid $250 million or whatever they're going to be paying for him, and he winds up being a terrible announcer in the booth, and no one wants to hear anything from Tom Brady anymore? That would be pretty funny. I would imagine they did not spend that kind of dime to know it would backfire, though. Brian says, go for Carr now. Rodgers' situation is too murky. As soon as Carr gets released, the Jets must be all in on Carr. You do not wait for Rodgers to make a decision. If Rodgers is serious about coming to the Jets or serious about playing for a contender, maybe he wasn't considering the Jets, Rodgers needs to make that decision before Carr gets released, because other teams are going to pivot and his options will be less than they were prior to that. But maybe the Packers decide, hey, we're going to let Carr sign because now that price goes up, because we don't care where Carr signs. We just care with whoever's going to send us the draft pick. So it's kind of interesting to see what that timeline could look like, because Rodgers saying, hey, I want to trade, well, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to trade him right then and there. Interesting. I hadn't really considered that now. The Real Ruck says, Jets and Green Bay have already agreed to a trade, waiting on Rodgers to commit. Yeah, I think there's a handshake agreement behind closed doors. I think everyone knows that this trade just makes so much sense for everyone involved. The NFL makes a ton of sense. They're going to get Hard Knocks. They want to see a prime quarterback in an elite market. They want to see, the number 12 come out. I mean, think about the theatrics that they can do with Joe Namath allowing Aaron Rodgers to wear the number 12 jersey. And, could he bring the Super Bowl back here? You're allowing the quarterback to sit. It's just, it makes too much sense. I think they have the handshake agreement going on behind closed doors. Frank says, let's just hope Rodgers continues to dictate his destination and the Jets is the team. Yeah, I think the connection between LaFleur and Saleh almost has more to do with it. I think Rodgers would choose New York anyway because of our market. I think he would choose it because of our team in general. But I do think that there's more than just Rodgers committing here. I think he might commit to a few teams and then be like, okay, I'm cool with wherever you send me based on whatever compensation you guys get back. Rube said, just got here. Did Brady announce it or speculative concept? He did announce it. He announced it on Twitter today or Instagram. He released a video. I played it at the beginning of the stream. You can go back and watch it if you want to catch that. But it felt like a very heartfelt, honest retirement. I don't think he's coming back. I think he's definitely done. Brendan Mannion says, is Breece Hall back game 1 next season? That's a big consideration for your over-under win. It's a big consideration, but I'm almost factoring Breece Hall out of the equation entirely next year, just because I don't think he's going to have the issues with the ACL the way some guys do. I think he's probably closer to maybe the Adrian Peterson side of things than maybe the Saquon Barkley side of things, just because of the way he wound up twisting and going down. But if he feels like he's not confident in that leg and he can't cut, then you're not really getting a full 100% Breece Hall at that point. I like what we have out of Bam Knight and Michael Carter. I think with Aaron Rodgers, even if you didn't have Breece Hall, you'd be probably in that 11.5 win threshold. If you get a healthy Breece, I think that's what could take you even beyond that for me. So I don't want to say I'm not considering Breece Hall because I am on the season overall, but I do think that 11.5 wins with or without Breece Hall is entirely possible. Anthony Austin says, no way Jets get 12 wins, even with Rodgers. Remember, this is the Jets we are talking about, 10 wins with Rodgers next season, says Anthony. I mean, that's interesting considering, like, we very much should have won both Patriot games. You definitely could have beat the Lions. You definitely could have beat the Vikings. That alone, with horrible quarterback play, like 39th out of 32 teams, like ranked quarterback. Like that's where Zach Wilson was. 39th out of 32 teams quarterback-wise, because backups and guys that sub in and whatnot. I mean, if you're saying you can get 11 wins with that average, I don't know how you argue that the Jets can't get to 12 wins with Rodgers. That is a bad take. I'm sorry, Anthony. The Real Ruck says Carr will not get released. They will keep him and trade him. It's worth money to acquire picks. So that's the interesting side of this. So Carr has a no trade clause. So if Carr really wanted to be a stickler, he can say, I'm playing for the Raiders next year. Like, that's fine. They didn't want to risk injury because they didn't want me to tear an ACL and be on the hook for the money. That's different than being on the hook for the money and having a healthy quarterback through the entire season. So with Brady retiring, maybe Jimmy G comes to New York. Maybe the Raiders don't move on from Carr and Carr stays in as a Raider for one more year. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think if I were Derek Carr, I would play hardball. I would say, I'm going to be a Raider next year, which I think he kind of flubbed up because he already said, oh, well, I'm not going to, we're going to move on to a new team. So I think if he attempted to hold the Raiders hostage, the Raiders would call his bluff and he'd accept a trade later on. So I don't think he's going to block every trade. So I don't think Carr's going to have the backbone to do what's needed to do for him to hit free agency. But I do think that a decision is going to have to be made by Rodgers. I'm fascinated to see how much the Raiders are willing to gamble that $40 million and how badly they want a quarterback in the draft. I don't know. I think $32 million for Carr this year makes a ton of sense, and then for them to cut him after this season is fine too, because they would have cut him this year and not gotten anything potentially anyway. I don't know. I think he gets moved for like a mid-round pick to Carolina. That'll be my guess here. Mum says, until the season starts, Tom not taking the field. I don't believe it yet. Look, you could always change your opinion once training camp fires up and you get that itch and you're like, oh, everyone's talking football. I've done it the majority of my life. Maybe he comes back. I don't see it, though. That felt pretty honest, if you ask me. M. Moore says Niners could end up keeping Jimmy, Trey Lance, and Purdy. Why not? Yeah, I think they have to consider keeping a veteran quarterback. But if you're Jimmy Garoppolo, like they've been trying to get rid of your ass for 2 years. Why on earth would you want to re-sign with the 49ers unless you really felt confident that you were going to be the starter and you were going to lead them to the Super Bowl? I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I would think they want to see what they have in Trey Lance, and I would think Brock Purdy showed you far more than Jimmy G did this past year. I don't think he's going to stay in San Francisco. D says, too bad the Jets didn't wait a little longer. Could have gotten Kellen Moore. That was my initial reaction. It's like, why are we signing Hackett when there's still all these great teams in the playoffs and all their coaches? Like, why wouldn't we try to pull someone off a winning organization than a guy that just got canned in Hackett? But the realistic, nuts and bolts of the situation is that Joe Douglas and Robert Saleh are going into a year that they need to win, and any respectable up-and-coming offensive coordinator candidate was not going to accept this job and risk having a one-and-done type year with a quarterback situation that might make them look even worse. So Kellen Moore was never going to be an option. He took the Chargers job. It was the best job going on the market. He was unemployed for all of 5 minutes. He was never going to be an option for the New York Jets. Hunter Beckwith says, I think Carr might stay in Vegas. To be honest, I think Josh was counting on Brady going to Vegas. I agree. I think Jimmy G is the only thing that might cause a wrench in the situation. I think at this point you could say maybe Jimmy G and Carr are the most likely candidates. Actually, it's probably Jimmy G, Rodgers, then Carr. Carr is probably the third option if they can't move on from either one of them. But good thoughts there, Hunter. I do think that is interesting. Brian says, Rodgers is playing golf this week. We need Green Bean to go there and get some inside info. Yeah, he's at Pebble Beach, right? Is that where he is? Green Bean's on the road. Green Bean's down in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl. So we'll get some insight from him. Looking forward to it. Rob says Brees is already running on a treadmill. Yep, was awesome to see that. It's a lot different than cutting, but seeing him running, at least right now, I mean, I think he got his surgery in like November or like beginning in December after the swelling went down. I think that's when I saw that pop through. FM in the chat says, ha ha ha, we ain't getting Rodgers now. He's going to Tampa Bay. Finally, we can groom White and Wilson with Hackett. Why would the Packers trade him in conference? I don't understand that logic. Howie B says, I'd rather have Carr than Rodgers. Why? Is it you don't believe in Rodgers, or you believe strongly in Carr, or you think Carr is going to give you, the 4 or 5 years? You're going to have more money to go for a Super Bowl with Rodgers than you will have with Carr. Because if you're signing Carr, I'm assuming it's going to be like a 3-year, $100 million deal. So you're talking about a $30 to $40 million cap hit a year with Derek Carr, where with Aaron Rodgers, you're paying $15 million and $32 million the next 2 years. Go all in with the Super Bowl. You can build a far better team with Rodgers around in New York than with Carr. And this is someone who likes Carr. I'm all about getting Derek Carr. I would say Rodgers 1, Derek Carr 2 for me right now. Joey says 10 wins unless we build up our offensive line and get another big body wide receiver like Lazard. Hope we use the tight ends more. I want to see our tight ends used a little bit more than we used them this past year. I do think that 10 wins is light. If we got 10 wins with Rodgers under center, after having the season we just had, should have won both Patriot games, should have won the Viking game, should have won the Lion game. I do think we probably stand a better shot at winning Seattle or Miami or any of these last few games down the stretch that we kind of blew up on. I'm going to gamble on Rodgers being the guy that he always has been. And the year that we just saw was more an issue of not having Hackett there and, the broken thumb as well. Stephen Engel says, the only way we get Rodgers is if we offer Green Bay an offer they can't refuse, 2 first-rounders. No, I don't think that's the only way. We just have to be the highest bidder. I think if they want to move on with Jordan Love, then as long as you're the highest bidder, you're going to get him. Now, is there another team that's going to trade 2 firsts for Aaron Rodgers straight up? I don't know if that's the case. Especially it has to be a team in the AFC. The Colts aren't giving up number 4 for Rodgers. I don't think that's going to be realistic. I would imagine any first-round pick in 2024 is going to be looked at as the same value because you're anticipating Rodgers getting that team further than any other year. So you're going to want the first in this year. So are the Colts giving up a 4? I don't think so. The Titans, I don't know where they fell as far as pick. What are they, 12? They're not 12. They're 11. So I guess they could give up 11, which would force the Jets to say, hey, we're going to give up 13 plus the first in 2024, where the Titans might say, hey, we're either going to give up 11 and I don't know. The Titans could offer a more lucrative package, and that's where Matt LaFleur came from just prior to going to Green Bay. I don't know what Rodgers' value is. Now, I would have said, before Tom Brady leaving, I would have said a first and a conditional pick. I still feel that way. But I would say it puts my back against the wall a little bit more, and I would feel more comfortable offering a little bit higher than otherwise would have. Hunter says Jets have more draft capital. It's not in the NFC. The Jets have a better D. Also, they don't have an offensive coordinator. I doubt he goes to Tampa Bay. Yeah, I agree. That was the comment that I pulled up earlier. Greg says, why not Lamar? Because you're going to have to give up so much for Lamar. And that may become an issue at some point. It may be like, hey, Rodgers got traded to Tennessee. Jimmy Garoppolo went to Vegas. Derek Carr goes to Carolina. Now what are the Jets doing? Oh, hey, we have this connection with Joe Douglas from down in Baltimore. There's still some rocky stuff going on. Lamar's not fully sold on having to play under the tag because he doesn't think he has to prove himself under this new offensive coordinator about being a passing quarterback as opposed to being looked at as a run first type quarterback. Then you give up the haul. I think Lamar is the last-ditch effort, and I don't think it's realistic. I think he's going back to Baltimore. I think he's going to play under the tag, and he's going to sign a big deal there next year. But if you miss out on Rodgers, you miss out on Carr, and you miss out on Jimmy G, and Douglas doesn't have to worry about the salary cap space in the future, doesn't have to worry about the draft picks you're going to lose in the future, because if he does not win, those picks aren't going to matter anyway. I could see him offering a massive trade to try and get Lamar, because that would be their final option at that point, because I do not want to see Ryan Tannehill under center here. David Hall Jr. says, with Tom Brady retiring, what does that mean for Aaron Rodgers going forward? I know he's going to play, but how much does that weigh on it? I wonder if there's any thought to, Brady got his swan song. Now Rodgers wants to get his swan song, almost like the Jeter Rivera kind of retirings in baseball. I hope that's the case. I hope Rodgers keeps playing, and hopefully it doesn't change where he wants to go too much. Maybe he tries to force his way to Vegas, which would not make me feel super great. Stephen Pollard says, Mike White is a Florida boy. I could see him ending up in Tampa, or would the Rams be a possible spot for White with LaFleur there now? I know he can run the offense. Yeah, I think LaFleur holding on to Mike White going out to LA is entirely possible. I guess Tampa Bay is possible too. There's going to be a few spots, and I think those teams that want to have the Ryan Fitzpatrick type experience where you can run the offense efficiently, you can say, okay, this guy provides you a baseline of quarterback play. I think Mike White's floor as a quarterback is relatively high as far as backups are concerned, and I think if you have maybe a young quarterback, Mike White could at least let you grade the rest of the roster so you know how accurately you can grade your young quarterback. He'll land somewhere. I don't think it's going to wind up being with the Jets. Sneakers to Boots says, JD's draft pedigree is among the best in the league. Whatever picks we give up, we will be okay in the draft. This is what I've tried to say, and a lot of people have given me shit for, Zach Wilson's a bust, Mekhi Becton's a bust, Denzel Mims is a bust. Look at the whole 2020 draft. Ashton Davis isn't good. We already cut Morgan, and Perine's gone, and Clark retired, and you're going through this whole list of draft prospects, and you consider what a good GM hits on. A good GM will hit on just under 50% of their draft picks in the first round. In the first round. Joe Douglas, if you consider Mekhi Becton, Denzel Mims, and Zach Wilson total busts, cannot be reclaimed, there's no value in them, total complete busts. Joe Douglas, through his 3 years of drafting as the New York Jets GM, has a 70% hit rate in the first 2 rounds. 70%. AVT, Elijah Moore, Garrett Wilson, Sauce Gardner, Jermaine Johnson, Breece Hall. That's 6. 6. I think they had 8 picks, right, in the first 2 rounds. And I would say Mims, Becton, those 2 guys have the talent. It just seems like they've kind of been untapped potential. And then Zach, you don't know what you're going to get in that, I guess, unfortunately. But I'll take 70% hit rate in the first 2 rounds all damn day. That's where all the talent is. V-Man drops in, says, Rodgers won't play for a team with a lousy defense. I wonder how much of Vegas losing was actually their defense and how much of it was the conspiracy theory of McDaniels submarining the season. Did he make poor judgment calls that led to giving up those historic losses? Because that defense shouldn't be as bad as it is. With Max Crosby and Chandler Jones, that should be a really stout defensive line. So I don't know. Maybe if the Raiders' defense is that bad, and I haven't watched enough games for the Raiders to know one way or the other, I guess, on this, then Rodgers maybe wouldn't choose there. But I don't know how much of a say Rodgers is going to have. It might just be hey, we've got to trade. This is where you're going. You don't have a no trade clause unless he's really saying I'm going to retire and hold that out. But we were talking on the Talking Jets panel last night, and we were saying how Rodgers does not have that leverage, and he could retire. But teams have the leverage of, well, we have $110 million sitting right here for you, and all you have to do is show up and do what you've done the last 18 years or however long you've been in the league. Do that. You get 25% of your career earnings. Rodgers has made $300 million in the NFL. He's going to make $110 million over these next 2 years. He's not leaving that on the table. That is the leverage that teams have over Aaron Rodgers, and the Packers could trade him to a team he doesn't necessarily love, but $110 million, are you leaving that on the table? I'm not so sure. I do think they will take his thoughts into consideration. They're not going to send him off to, the equivalent of, the 0-16, Browns, whenever that was. It's not going to be like that sort of situation. But I do think the Raiders are squarely in the conversation because of the Devontae Adams connection, because they could be looked at as a win-now team. I don't know. We'll see. Bobby Johnson says the Jets need to stop panicking and go with White. Stop it, Bobby. Don't be a dick. I don't like it. Not a fan. Jennifer says Brady retirement day deserves a little excess in celebration. I don't have any booze in here, but I will have some coffee. So nice. Eric Craig says, let's trade 13 for 15 with Green Bay. Then next draft, conditional pick based on Rodgers' performance. Trade 15 back out of the first round and pick up a first round draft pick, an additional 2 or 3. I don't think that's enough. You'd have to probably swap picks with Green Bay this year and give up your second this year and give up a conditional pick next year. That's the only way I see that working. The value going down however many slots does not make any sense. Let me look up the draft value chart. I'm interested to see what that would kind of look like. So Green Bay's at 15. It's a difference of what would equate to like a late third round pick. So if you think Rodgers is getting traded for a late third round pick this year, I got some bad news for you, dude. It's probably not happening. V-Man says, reports say they will respect his wishes, meaning Rodgers minus the NFC. So, okay. So, I mean, does that still take the Raiders out? I don't know if that necessarily takes the Raiders out of contention. If they say, like, hey, we have trade options. We've got options to all these teams. Are they going to let him pick his favorite of the options? Or are they going to say, hey, we're going to forego an extra second round pick because you want to go here? I mean, maybe. They might just say, like, hey, look, which teams would you be willing to go to? And if Rodgers comes back and says one, maybe that's the case. But they may go to him and say, where would you be willing to play? And then they just keep him out of conversations after that. I don't know. M. Moore says, I can see Rodgers caring about O-line, not so much defense. I think Rodgers wants to win overall, but I do think he cares about O-line. That's why I think the Colts they could be in contention for him. I just don't think they're going to give up the 4 pick. And I think if the Jets offer 13, unless the Titans are going to offer 11, it should be the highest offer, I would think. EAS says, David Hall, I can't see how you trade Lawson. He was injured all last year. It's his first year back. He is costly, yes, I know, but I can't see them trading him with the potential he has. There's no way Lawson gets traded. He's going to get cut. We saved $15 million by holding on to him. And it's not so much that I don't like Carl Lawson, but it's more so that I really want to see more out of Jermaine Johnson, Michael Clemens, Bryce Huff. You have JFM on the outside, on the other side already. So you have a healthy rotation of 4 young players. And Lawson is just, unfortunately, the odd man out. I don't think that has anything to do with his injury last year. I think that's just, hey, you got 7.5 sacks, whatever it was this year. That's fine, but that's not worth $15 million to us when we have all these cheap rookies and other players under contract. So I don't think so. I think he's going to get cut. I think the team's going to get a pretty good pass rusher because of it. This is probably like the best kind of player you would want to bring in because it's not a quality issue. It's a depth issue. This season at the Jets would have kept Chuma Edoga. That would have helped somewhat. I don't want Chuma Edoga. Kumi says, Ryan, being Texans GM is good for the Jets. D'Amico Ryans being head coach of the Texans. I see your other comment down there. Head coach of the Texans is good for the Jets. I think they take a quarterback and defense with the first 2 picks. It kind of depends on how they want to handle Tunsil. I think they extend Tunsil and they try to protect their new quarterback. They're definitely going to take quarterback at number 2 or trade up to number 1. My concern is if they don't want the Colts behind them, their division rival, just 2 picks behind them, to trade in front of them with the Bears. Because if I'm the Colts, I'm trying to jump the Texans to get my franchise quarterback to prevent a division rival from getting their franchise quarterback, which could also be the one I'm hoping that falls to 4. So I think the Bears are going to pit the Colts and the Texans against one another, and the Texans are going to have to give up the 12 pick. And my concern is that the Bears then get the top defensive player at number 2, which is totally fine, but that number 12 pick, the Raiders, the Titans, and then the Texans then the Bears by way of the Texans take the 3 tackles at the top of the draft. But yeah, we want as many defense and quarterbacks going in front of us as possible because I don't think that's the direction the Jets are going to end up going. I don't know what I said, but Good Citizen says I'm being a dick. Sorry, it is what it is. K-Mac says, I'm not buying the retirement. Give him 10 to 15 business days. This one I buy. I did buy it last year because I didn't take him for someone that would flip-flop, but I don't see it happening a second time. That one it looked like he was tired this year. Just looking at like the way he looked on the sideline, his face looked like he was done. Stephen Engel says, how about this? We give them 2 first-rounders and we get a second back. I'm good for whatever gets Aaron Rodgers here. I'm like, this is what sucks about being a Jet fan and being so dependent on Aaron Rodgers and having your hopes and dreams around Aaron Rodgers is they're going to have our balls to the fire. They're going to do whatever they want, and they're going to get whatever they want from us because they know we're so desperate. And I don't want that to be the case. That's why I want Carr to be a possible situation. D says, defensive head coaches don't work today. I would have fired Saleh, brought in Cliff Kingsbury as head coach. Zach would probably be a star in that spread out air raid offense. Shanahan offense is complicated. The Shanahan offense definitely feels complicated, but it also doesn't in some sort of respect because we have seen success from Mike White in that offense. We have seen success from Brock Purdy in that offense in relatively limited opportunities. I shouldn't say limited opportunities, but limited durations of time needed to be in the system. Like Purdy was in it for a year. Mike White was in it for 6 months before, maybe not even 6 months, before he came in and had a 400-yard game for us last year. I think defensive head coaches can be fine. You just need a strong offensive presence. If the defensive coach has no, thoughts on the offensive side of the ball, or they don't trust or can hire a good offensive side of the ball, then yeah, it's going to be an issue. I guess the thing people always come back to with offensive head coaches is at least another team can't poach your offensive mind away from you because he is your head coach. Whereas if like LaFleur were to have developed Zach Wilson, there's a real good shot LaFleur would have been hired away from the New York Jets, and the Jets don't have their quarterback whisperer that they would have otherwise had. That's kind of what I think you're getting at here. Lucas says, trade the 13 pick and Corey Davis to the Bengals for T. Higgins. Lucas, no. Go back to bed. Sleep this off. Never say this again. Not right. Nick says, let's not forget Green tried getting Corey Davis last year from us. So maybe we restructure Corey Davis because did Aaron Rodgers want Corey Davis or did Green Bay want Corey Davis? That would be something interesting to me because I don't know how much Green Bay wants Corey Davis now that they've drafted Christian Watson, and that they might be going on with Jordan Love. But if they want him, sure, you could throw him in. I was going to cut him anyway. Rico the Pup, can the Raiders afford his contract without gutting their team? Not like that defense was ready was really ready to really stop anyone. So the Raiders, the issue with the Raiders is not the cap hits. They'll be fine with the cap hits of Aaron Rodgers over these next 2 years. Where they're not going to be fine is if they have to put the entire guaranteed money in escrow. From my understanding is they're not a super cash wealthy ownership group over there, the Davises are. So they may not have all the money necessarily needed to actually have Rodgers on their contract, not just the cap hits. I don't know. I think they could make it work. I think if Rodgers wanted to be there, he could negotiate something that maybe makes it easier for the team to take him on while still maintaining a lot of that. Who knows? Rich is saying the same thing. Cash poor team in the league. Most cash poor team in the league. That would be lovely. That would be absolutely lovely. Jennifer says, sorry for the repeating question, but do you think it's possible the Raiders cut Carr early for fear of a Pro Bowl injury? Oh, man, I didn't even think of that. Holy smokes. No. Interesting. So Carr is now playing in the Pro Bowl. It is a flag football game, and it's a skills competition, so it's not tackling. Jeez, could you imagine if Carr got hurt in a Pro Bowl flag football game? And the Raiders had to pay him $40 million. Oh, God, that would be too perfect. I didn't even think of that. That's interesting. I don't hope that happens. I don't hope injury on anyone, and that would really hurt for us. But I hope we can get Aaron Rodgers, and then the Raiders just shoot themselves in the foot. No, I don't hope that. I don't hope that at all. Sneakers to Boots says, the only way Lawson stays is if he restructures, but Lawson won't want to. He will use the 7 sacks despite having a setback with the Achilles. Yeah, I completely agree. I think Lawson has more value elsewhere, and I think he'll find more money than what he would make on a restructured deal. And even then, honestly, if he was to say, hey, I'm going to play here for $1 million, I mean, $1 million, I'd probably do it. But if he wanted to come back, what's the lowest contract you could see Carl Lawson taking, and you would feel okay as the Jets taking it? Like if he wants to take half, $7.5 million. I'll be honest, I don't want to pay Carl Lawson $7.5 million because I want to see what happens with JJ. I want to see what happens with Clemens. I want to see what happens with Huff. The money that we're paying Huff, the first-year tender is going to cost us $6 million. That's the 4 I want. I don't think there's anything that Lawson has shown me that would make me feel like I want to hold him and prevent those guys from playing, even if he took a lower deal. V-Man says, Cliff Kingsbury is a choker. Meltdown in college and meltdown in pros, I think is what he's trying to say. Joel says, according to Boy Green, Mike White's time in New York is over. Yeah, that was over the second he got hurt, unfortunately. You knew the Jets were going to have to go all in on a quarterback, and they were going to have Zach Wilson as their backup. Zach Wilson is quarterback 2 going into next year. He's not going to be quarterback 3. The Jets are not going to pay a veteran and pay Mike White. Mike White's going to be going somewhere else, 100%. Completely agree with that thought process. Mutt Viles says, I'm giving it 40 days before I say it's okay Tom Brady is retired. Maybe. I think he's done. Sneakers Boot says, does Brady try to win back Giselle now that he gave up his first love? Maybe, right? He was looking at schools with his kids in Miami, I think. I think he's just done. He's going to hang it up, try to do the family man thing. I don't know if he's going to go back to Giselle. It seems like Brady's doing just fine with his new lady friend that he's got going on. David Hall Jr. says, honestly, still can't understand how the Jets can still say we still believe in Zach when it's clear they don't. I don't think they believe in Zach. I think it's more so Zach's just going to sit for 2 years. We have to pay him money anyway. So I think he is going to be quarterback 2 because of the optics. I think they will bring in another quarterback as the third string quarterback. I don't think Strevler is your third guy because I don't know how much they want to go back to Zach in the event Rodgers does go down. At least not in like a Super Bowl type run where they'll want to have at least some other option there. But I do think for roster moves and whatnot, I do think Wilson is going to be listed as QB2. Nick Russo says, I have a bad feeling Brady retiring, we lose Carr to Tampa Bay. I really think Carr is going to go to the NFC South. I think the NFC is where you want to be as a quarterback if you want to win, and if you want to win divisions, unless Atlanta winds up getting Lamar Jackson, which I do think is the most likely situation if Lamar is traded. There's no one in that conference or no one in that division with the Panthers, the Saints, the Bucks, and the Falcons that scares you in any capacity. Like, that division could be sitting at an 8-9 division winner next year. So I do think Carr could go there, but I think Carr goes to Carolina as opposed to Tampa Bay. I don't know. I think I would, if I were Carr, I would prefer to play for an offensive-minded head coach in Frank Reich more than a defensive-minded head coach in Todd Bowles at this point. But who knows? I mean, as a free agent, hitting the no state income tax in Tampa Bay might be more appealing for Carr at this point. Christopher John Krug, now go get Brady as quarterback coach. No, don't want him. Let him go. Let's see. David Hall says Jermaine Johnson, Michael Clemens, Bryce Huff are all better than Carl Lawson. No disrespect to him. I think they're all better based on their contract for sure. I don't know if they're all better than Lawson right now, but I think their ceilings can be higher than my perceived ceiling for Lawson right now, given his contract. It's just a money game and a numbers game for Lawson. No issue with him whatsoever. I like the guys we have under contract. Oreo says there's a real shot we lose out on everybody now. Yes, there's a very real shot that happens. When I was talking just the other day about Brock Purdy going down with an injury and the Jets possibly losing out on everyone, this is exactly the same situation because Tom Brady becomes an option for no one, but now there's even the optics of, does San Francisco still consider a vet quarterback, and does that eliminate even another quarterback off the market? I think they're probably going to have to roll with like a Purdy-Lance situation and just let it ride over there. I would have thought they'd have some type of veteran. I mean, they're just blowing through quarterbacks left and right. Carr, could he structure a contract to wind himself out in San Francisco? That would be kind of cool. I mean, he's a San Fran, California guy anyway. NFC side of the coin. If the Raiders are going to cut him and the San Francisco 49ers are like, yeah, we'll toss you a 7th round pick for him, why not? I don't know. Maybe that gets it done. That would be interesting. Jennifer says, I think Brady retiring makes it more likely that the Titans keep Tannehill. Yeah, I don't know what to think about Tannehill. I think the Titans are squarely in play for Rodgers. I think the Jets and the Titans, and maybe the Colts, but I think the Jets and Titans are the two teams it comes down to. And which team's willing to give up their first? The Jets have 13, the Titans have 11. And if the Titans give up 11, then it might come down to, hey, we've got the Titans offer, we've got the Jets offer. Rodgers, where do you want to go? Then I think Rodgers does pick the Jets in that situation. We shall see. Jets fan 68 says, with Mike White gone, who will be the third quarterback given Zach won't be ready for at least another year? I think Streveler's going to be our... I don't think the Jets necessarily carry a third quarterback. I think Streveler is like the practice squad guy that'll sit there and kind of be active, inactive, and will bounce back and forth. I think maybe we add an undrafted free agent or a late round pick in there, and then in the event Rodgers does get hurt, then I think at that point you start to recalculate some things and maybe you bring in a vet just because you're like, oh, hey, we're on a Super Bowl run, Zach's not ready, now we'll do it. But I think if you're assuming Rodgers is going to play every game like he has the last 5 seasons, I think you're not going to bring in any type of quarterback that might kind of contend with Zach. I think it's just going to be sit and learn Zach. So for me, Streveler's quarterback 3 / practice squad. I think the Jets carry 2 quarterbacks on the active day roster unless they actually plan on using Streveler in those Taysom Hill type packages. I hope they do. I really do. Sears says the Chiefs accepted the Jets' offer for Tyreek Hill, yet Hill wanted to go to Miami. Could see the same thing happening with Rodgers. He'll choose the Jets regardless of the Titans' offer. That would be the hope. The issue with Tyreek Hill and Aaron Rodgers is you're not renegotiating Rodgers' contract where you would be renegotiating Tyreek Hill's, or they were renegotiating Tyreek Hill's. So the Jets could have traded that package for Tyreek Hill, and the Chiefs could have accepted it, and Tyreek Hill would be a Jet, but he wasn't going to sign the contract to extend him, which is why that didn't work. With Rodgers, his contract's already signed. The Jets don't have to re-sign him to a contract. The threat that Rodgers could make at this point would be, hey, I'm going to retire. I don't want to play for the Titans. But then he's leaving $110 million over 2 years on the table. That's the leverage teams have against Rodgers retiring in that sort of situation. So if the Titans and Jets are going back and forth, they may go towards Rodgers' preferred destination because of all he has given them, but they don't have to. It's not exactly an apples-to-apples comparison with Tyreek Hill because Tyreek Hill's situation revolved around a $100 million contract you'd have to give him to facilitate that trade, where Rodgers, that's not the case. Christopher says, would you use Strevler like a Taysom Hill playstyle? Yes. I feel like you must have been listening there. EAS says, I'd take Rodgers for 2-3 years. I just want to see a Super Bowl. I've been waiting 18 years. I want to see them win one before I turn 20. Yeah, if they could figure out some way to get him for a third year as well, that would be kind of cool. But that would be the decision I'd make after you make the decision that Zach is like not the guy. I think that's what you'd have to do. Bills fan here says, X-Dream PCs. You guys get a quarterback. People better watch out. Jets are beasts, ready to bust out. Yeah, dude, we're hoping that's kind of where we're at. This defense is ready to go. We're going to be a little more locked and loaded when we get healthy. If the Jets can get Aaron Rodgers, we're going to be making some serious noise. I mean, think about it. When we played you guys, we were without AVT and Breece Hall, and we beat you with Zach Wilson throwing 1 touchdown and 150 yards. Like, I mean, it did rely on Josh Allen have 2 very unorthodox interceptions. But if the Jets are able to perform well with one of the best teams in the league with garbage quarterback play, getting a quarterback just means you're going to be so much better. Xander says, would you rather have Garrett Wilson or Breece Hall? I would rather Garrett Wilson. I really like Breece Hall. I think Breece Hall is a better running back than a lot of his peers, where Garrett Wilson is probably in the top 15 of receivers. Breece Hall might be in the top 5 of running backs. But Garrett Wilson's career is going to be so much longer than Breece Hall's. Breece Hall's is going to be done by 30. Garrett Wilson could conceivably be playing, 33, 34, 35. I also like Bam Knight and Carter. I don't know. Breece Hall was the cog that made everything spin this year. So I think our offense would have been better with Breece Hall because of Corey Davis and because of Elijah Moore. I don't know. Ryan, you read that wrong. Is that what you're talking about? Hill not coming here is a blessing. What are you guys talking about? Oh, that's what you're saying. Oh, okay. Xander's saying, would you rather have Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall or Tyreek Hill? Use all your words. Use all your words. Gotcha. Okay. Wilson and Breece for me. I didn't want Hall, or I didn't want Tyreek Hill. You guys saw my video at the time. I didn't think it was even realistic. I didn't think Joe Douglas was going to trade for a guy that was not in good character standing. I mean, the guy punched his pregnant girlfriend. Screw that guy. I don't want him here. Breece and Wilson all damn day. Let's see. I'll round this out just a little bit more. Nick Russo says teams trading for Rodgers would want him to renegotiate his contract to ease the dead money at the end of it, so Rodgers has that for leverage. Teams are also going to have 3 years before they have to worry about that $60 million dead cap hit. And the salary cap is going to continue going up. I think the contract or the new TV contract goes into effect this next year. So you might see a cap like close to $300 million, in which case this is not going to be a problem at all. I think Rodgers leverages his retirement more so than his dead cap hit right now. Or at least for some teams. The Jets could take that on and not have an issue. They don't even have to talk to Rodgers about renegotiating anything. Frank says, if Green Bay asked for Becton and a third this year and a third rounder next year for Rodgers, would you pull the trigger? This means the Jets get David Bakhtiari. Yes, absolutely. I would do that in a heartbeat. If they wanted Mekhi Becton and a conditional pick next year, done. Sorry. It could be as high as a first-round pick, depending on what happens. Done. No questions asked. I like Mekhi Becton. I don't trust him to even be on the field. He hasn't played in like 3 years. Becton is so far gone at this point. I'm not hoping. I'm hoping for the moon, but I'm not expecting anything from him. So if I could trade him in some type of package for a star quarterback, I'm doing it all damn day. Let's see. Jacob says, do you think there's a possibility that we get Rodgers or Carr and draft a quarterback next year? Joe Milton looks great. Drake May, Caleb Williams, Bo Nix. I know it's far-fetched, but just a talking point. I think if you get Carr or Rodgers, the answer is going to be no. I don't think the Jets pull the trigger on a highly drafted quarterback until 2025 at the earliest. And honestly, the move I would make, like if I'm playing the way far out 5D chess move type of situation, let's play this whole situation out right here. Aaron Rodgers has 2 years on his contract. Then you have $60 million worth of dead cap hitting in 2025. That means that season is not going to be great as far as pushing money into that season. You're probably going to run it back with Zach Wilson. Just say, let's see what happens. If he works, we've got our quarterback of the future. Perfect. Everything works out as planned. The plan with Rodgers was perfect. If it doesn't work out, because you have that $60 million dead cap hit, and because from what we've seen from Zach so far hasn't looked great, if he continues to look bad, the Jets are going to have an astronomically high pick in 2026. We'll have been able to re-sign all our players because all our young guys, with the exception of Mekhi Becton and Elijah Moore, will have their money hitting in 2026 and beyond. The Jets will then have a loaded roster with a quarterback class in 2026 that includes Arch Manning. That's where we get our Manning. That's when it's going to happen. The Jets are going to go all in 2026. That's the kind of move this sets you up for. If you think you get 2 years of Super Bowl with Rodgers, you get to see what you have in Zach Wilson, and then worst case scenario, it sets you up for Arch Manning. Like the best type of game plan is that type of game plan. Sign me up all damn day. Absolutely. But no, I think they're going to use all their resources to try and win a Super Bowl these next few years. They're not going to take a quarterback before that. Peter Dax says, you lost me at Zach Wilson. In 2025, if it's a crappy season and you're just throwing it out the window, why not throw it out with Zach Wilson with the hope that maybe he could be something after 2 years sitting behind Aaron Rodgers? It's possible. Got to pay him anyway. Mr. Recht says, do you think it's realistic to bring back Mike White, or do they give Zach the number 2 spot? There's no way Zach Wilson is not QB2 this year for the New York Jets, and I don't think Mike White comes back. I think it's going to be a veteran quarterback, and Mike White's going to end up going to the Rams or Tampa Bay or a team like that that's going to be competing or want to maybe grade their roster for a season, see what Mike White is, and then end up in good quarterback shape next year in the draft. I would look for Mike White to sign with a team like just out of striking distance that misses out on Carr, misses out on Rodgers, misses out on Jimmy G. Maybe Minshew has a spot ahead of him. Don't know where Tannehill goes. I don't know. All right. So I think that's where I'm going to leave you guys at this point. I'm a little tired. Done talking about Tom Brady. He retires. I think it's official. I think we're going to wind up having a little more competition on the quarterback front because of it. I don't particularly love that, I'll be honest. But, hey, things could be a lot worse. So, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below. Do you want to see something, I don't know, where do you see this all playing out? Do the Jets and Aaron Rodgers make it all work? Or is it going to all come crumbling down and the Jets are going to miss out on what they could possibly do? Joshua Sullivan, I see your super chat in there. I'll throw that up on the screen real quick. He says, are Jets getting a new stadium in 2026? The Jets have an opt-out of MetLife after 2025 or in 2025. I don't think so. I would be very surprised. I think Woody Johnson likes the idea of splitting operating costs in MetLife with the Giants. I think he likes the idea of not competing for events with MetLife and some of the other stadiums around the area. I think the Jets and Giants are going to share a stadium. Financially, it just makes all the sense in the world. I just wish we had like a Jet section of it, and I wish they had like their own Giant section of it. I don't know. Guys, you can let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.